Don't sink this bill, Senator Sinema. Senate Democrats have overcome obstacle after obstacle in their push to pass a reconciliation package. And they are nearing the finish line this week. Unless something or someone gets in their way. Senator Kyrsten Sinema was reportedly left out of discussions between Senator Joe Manchin III and Senate Majority Leader Charles Schumer about the details of the surprise Inflation Reduction Act announced last week. Nonetheless, the agreement is largely consistent with her preferences expressed in previous negotiations. From the relatively modest reforms to prescription drug pricing to climate action to the 15% corporate minimum tax rate estimated to raise $313 billion. Indeed, the fact that the legislation ignores larger hikes on the highest-income Americans is a form of concession. There is, however, a significant exception. The closure of the carried interest loophole has long been a source of concern for Ms. Sinema. However, it is included in the bill before her today for good reason. The carried interest loophole allows fund managers to make a lot of money while paying the government very little because the portion of the fund's profits they receive for their work is taxed at a top rate of just under 24%, significantly less than the 37% top rate for ordinary income. This giveaway is so valuable that many people attribute the majority of their fortunes to it. According to the Wall Street Journal, Blackstone Incorporated, last year, CEO Stephen Schwarzman received around $150 million in carried interest compensation. Two other executives received close to $92 million and $77 million, respectively. There is simply no justification for any legislator who claims to care about economic justice or equality to oppose closing the carried interest loophole. Nonetheless, Congress, many of whose members benefit from the donations of the wealthy, could allow this scandal to continue. Especially if Ms. Sinema demands it. She shouldn't do it. Republicans have made much of a nonpartisan Joint Committee on Taxation analysis in recent days, claiming that the reconciliation would raise rates on those earning less than $400,000 per year, contrary to President Biden's pledges. This is mostly irrelevant. The theory that some of the new 15% minimum tax on corporations will be passed on to employees and shareholders does not change the fact that the majority of the burden will fall on the richest, and the majority of the benefit will accrue to the poorest, whether in the form of assistance in affording medicine or health care, or as an investment in slowing global warming. Ms. Sinema should not kill this bill, the majority of which she has stated in the past that she supports. She also shouldn't sink it because she is opposed to closing the carried interest loophole. That provision unambiguously benefits those who require assistance the most, at the expense of those who do not require it at all. Democrats are willing to stake their domestic agenda on Sinema. She's unlikely to say anything about her party's $700 billion+ energy, tax, and health care bill until it's debated on the House floor. Senate Democrats will most likely begin a climactic series of votes this week on their party line energy, tax, and health care bill, with little public indication of where Senator Kyrsten Sinema stands. They're willing to take the risk. While everyone in Washington waits for the Arizona Democrat, her track record on high-profile issues suggests she won't say much about how she feels about the deal crafted by Senator Joe Manchin and Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, at least not until it's on the floor. If history is any guide, she'll be a wild card on amendments offered by Republicans in an attempt to change the bill on the Senate floor during votes later this week. Manchin's push to close a loophole known as carried interest, which some investors use to lower their tax rates, is at the heart of the cinematic intrigue. Manchin stated that he would meet with Sinema on Tuesday afternoon, telling West Virginia radio host Hoppy Kercheval that this is everything Kyrsten agreed to in December. She's the one who kept saying, "No new taxes." Nonetheless, the carried interest tax provision was not included in the more expensive version of the Democrats-only bill that Sinema had generally approved in December. And its inclusion is a major factor in Sinema's public neutrality on a bill that is expected to be supported by 49 of her colleagues. Nonetheless, the party is proceeding with the expectation that the bill will pass without a single Republican vote, taking advantage of strict rules that allow Democrats to avoid a filibuster, despite the fact that much of the road ahead is still under construction. "I'm going to approach it from the positive side and just say I anticipate Senator Sinema will be on board," said Senator John Tester. Senator Mark Kelly declined to comment on his own discussions with Sinema, but praised the bill's health care and climate change provisions. He stated that his constituents are concerned about the Arizona drought and wildfires, as well as prescription drug prices. "We have an incredible opportunity here to fix this problem," Kelly said. "I want to see us get something across the finish line." To generate an estimated $739 billion in revenue, the legislation would impose a 15% minimum tax on large corporations, increase IRS enforcement, and lower prescription drug prices. It also spends $369 billion on energy and climate change, extends Obamacare subsidies until 2024, and allocates $300 billion to deficit reduction. Overall, it's a lot smaller than Democrats' previous party line proposals from last year. But it's a lot bigger than the healthcare package the party thought it was getting just last week. Sinema is hesitant to publicly support the bill, in part because it has not been approved by the chamber's nonpartisan parliamentarian and may change in the future. After hearing from both Republicans and Democrats, the Senate's Rules Committee will decide whether provisions of the bill can benefit from the protections afforded by this year's budget process against a GOP filibuster. And the bill is still being worked on behind the scenes. Democrats, according to Schumer, will try to include legislation addressing skyrocketing insulin costs. Senator Raphael Warnock said in an interview that his party will try to attach his legislation to cap insulin costs at $35. "My bill to cap the cost of insulin will be in the reconciliation bill," Warnock said. Republicans believe they can make the case that the Georgians' plan violates Senate budget rules, triggering a vote at a 60-vote threshold. It could still be a useful political exercise for Democrats to challenge Republicans to a floor vote to repeal the insulin provision. Warnock is up for re-election this fall, and Democrats are eager to use the campaign trail to highlight their fight to lower drug prices. When asked about carried interest in Arizona, fellow incumbent Kelly said he's hearing a lot about high drug prices. The Senate is expected to vote on the bill later this week, which will be the first test of support among all 50 Democratic caucus members. Following that, there will be 20 hours of debate and an unlimited vote-a-rama on amendments, all of which require only a simple majority to pass. That chaotic free-for-all will give Sinema and every other senator a chance to change the bill, though Republicans will almost certainly offer the majority of amendments. Days after Manchin surprised most of his colleagues by striking a deal with Schumer, Republican senators are scrambling behind the scenes to see if they can screw it up. Republicans are hoping that Sinema will vote with them on a few amendments and then oppose Democratic leaders' efforts to remove those changes from the legislation at the end of the vote-a-rama. Senator John Thune said he's been talking to Sinema about why he opposes the bill and that she's analyzing it, keeping her own counsel, and usually comes to her own decisions, pretty independent of any pressure she might get from either side. One possible GOP amendment would repeal the legislation's carried interest language, which generates $14 billion in revenue out of the $739 billion total. According to Thune, Sinema is taking a pretty hard stance against that portion of the bill. "I certainly support it, and I'm confident we will attempt it. If we vote for it, I believe it has a good chance of winning. Who knows? Democrats might strip it out before they get there if she objects strongly enough," said Senator Kevin Cramer. "I'm always amazed at how little they include her." Thank you so much for watching the Ignition Time channel. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please take a moment to click like, subscribe and enable notifications. Also, tell your friends about Ignition Time at youtube.com/ignitiontime. We appreciate you watching, and look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Once again, please click like, subscribe and enable notifications. You can also follow us on Twitter, our handle is ignition_time. Thank you and see you soon.